Sports Take on this Friday. Hope you're doing well. That's Derek. That's Barrett. I'm Rob. Always thrilled to have our next guest on. Does an amazing job covering the Eagles for NBC Sports Philadelphia. You can follow him on Twitter at Zangaro NBCS. Also has the Eagle Eye podcast with Ruben Frank. Dave, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good, and you, bro? Dave,
we're good. First question I have is, did your mind work the same? I hope it didn't work the same way as mine, because then you'd have real problems. Did you think at least that when you heard the Lane extension that maybe this means Hurts is pretty close, or is it just to free up room for other maneuvers they still need to make?
I wouldn't read into that too much. Like, ultimately, it'll give them some flexibility to do that deal and have space for other things, but Lane wasn't going to play this year on the deal the way it was structured because of the cap hit. We're talking about, you looked at the Eagles cap situation going into this offseason, and there were two contracts you knew could not be there the way they were, and it was because of the cap hit. That was Darius Slay and Lane Johnson. Slay's cap hit was over $26 million. Slay's was over 24. Like, that's not the way the Eagles do business. They don't like to have those big chunks for guys when they can avoid it. I initially thought this was going to be a flat restructure for Lane. You give him a bulk of his base salary and a signing bonus, you prorate it and you alleviate the cap. That's kind of what they did here, but they also gave him a pay bump. They gave him some guaranteed money. It well deserved for Lane Johnson. It basically, like, you look at it, it's a 4-year deal worth $80 million, $30 million of that's guaranteed. So really the next 2 years of this contract are guaranteed. He's going to be 33 by the time this next season begins. But I mean, if there's one guy we haven't seen an ounce of depreciation, it's Lane Johnson. I mean, he's been so good recently. Yeah. So you feel okay about this.
No question. Dave, do you think people are a little bit too anxious when it comes to this Jalen Hurts thing? I think it's going to be a slow, meticulous thing. It's going to get done eventually in its right time. But I think people are too anxious in terms of get him done now, because the team doesn't have to get it done now.
They don't. It behooves them to get it done sooner rather than later. I mean, the price tag isn't going down for Jalen Hurts. And I think there's a little bit of a rush in some sense because you have the other two quarterbacks who are eligible for contracts this offseason, Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow. So, I mean, I think that it would make sense for Howie to try to get this Hurts deal done before those two deals. It's going to be a massive number no matter what. I mean, I don't think anyone's questioning that. We're talking 47 to 50 million, maybe over that per year. But you want to get in before Herbert and Burrow because that becomes the new floor. You want to set the floor. You don't want to have to go over top of it. So I think there's a little bit of a rush there. And unlike Herbert and Burrow, there is no fifth-year option for Hurts. He's entering the final year. So, yeah, you want to get it done. I think I was listening to Joe Banner speak with my colleague John Clark on his podcast, and I thought Joe Banner brought up a very good point that both sides know it's going to be massive in terms of average per year. We just mentioned it's probably going to be around 50 per year. The years is the difference right now. The Eagles are going to try to get as many years as they can, and Hurts wisely should try to limit it to 3 years or whatever it is in terms of an extension, because the salary cap is going to rise rapidly once this new TV money comes in. And that's why the Eagles, you want to get this done this offseason because the price tag isn't going down. We're looking at, that Patrick Mahomes deal. By the end of that thing, he's going to be getting paid relative peanuts.
Yep. Oh, it's a great deal for the Chiefs.
It really is, because, I mean, Joe Banner even said it, and I agree with him. Like, the quarterback salaries in the next 5 years, these guys who we're talking about now is like $45 to $50 million quarterbacks are going to be getting paid $70 to $75 million. Like, it's going to rise rapidly. So the difference between, say, a 5-year extension and a 3-year extension for Jalen Hurts is pretty big in terms of actual money going to him, which is why the Eagles would want to get a longer-term deal. If Hurts gets a 3-year deal, he continues to play really well. He can hit that negotiating table in his prime after the TV money, and that's a big difference in money.
You don't think trust me, that Mahomes deal. The Mahomes deal, he won't see the end of that deal. That
Yeah,
deal,
that'll get redone.
big time. I'm sorry, Barrett.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, you're looking at that. The style of play factor into where this money is, because I mean, you talking about. I think it's a double-edged sword when you talk about how you divvy out the years. Years being all right. He's a versatile quarterback. He can run, and they tend to say that running quarterbacks don't usually have the same tenure as guys that are drop back quarterbacks as type of players. How do you find that fine line if you're Jalen Hurts and if you were the Eagles?
Yeah, it's an interesting question for Hurts because, if he's going to fight and if his agent's going to fight for a shorter term deal because they want to hit the negotiating table again, I think it has to be in their mind. Now, he's not thinking about that. He's thinking, I play the way I play. I'm a really good player. It doesn't matter. But it's something in the back of everyone's mind. It's like this guy, he plays the position in a style that leaves him open for some extra hits, and he has struggled at times to stay healthy. The last 2 Decembers he's been hurt, and I don't think that's lost on anyone. But I do think he does a relatively good job of protecting himself. There are moments where he'll put his head down, and you wonder about the cumulative effect of that. But he's still so young that you hope you at least have like 5 years of him in his prime coming. You never know. I mean, you see Cam Newton right now doesn't have a job, and he's not the same guy he once was. And Cam's bigger, and he took these hits. I mean, different style of play a little bit, but I think you worry about that. Yeah, sure.
Dave, let me ask you. We haven't had a chance to talk since the CJ Gardner-Johnson stuff came down, and the deal numbers are out. 6.5 base, 1.5 in incentives. We could probably likely get him to 8. How surprised are you that he's not an Eagle when you see that number that he got from the Lions?
Yeah, I don't know if the number makes me surprised anymore. I think these two sides just weren't going to figure it out, and I think it's a shame because I look at it and I think the Eagles would be a better team with him, and he'd be in a better position, whether it was this deal or the initial deal he was offered. He'd be in a better spot with the Eagles. So I think it was just a case of misreading the market. If you're CJ's camp, and I don't think he's alone in that. I mean, I misread the market. I thought he was going to get paid a lot more than this. The difference is I didn't have a client depending on me reading the market. And look, give Howie credit. He read the market right, but in the process, they didn't get the player either. So reading the market's great, but when you lose the player, like, what does it really matter? It's a shame because I thought that he made sense to make him a priority, and I understand all the moves the Eagles have made this offseason, but he was the one free agent that I thought you want to sign to a long-term deal.
Yeah, because of his age, right?
Age. I mean, every other player they signed, so the other 2 guys they signed to long-term deals were, I mean, really just Slay and Bradbury. They're 3-year deals, basically be 2-year deals. If I had to ask you, do you think those guys will be playing their best football in that 3rd year? You'd probably say no, given the age. I mean, Slay's be 35, Bradbury's be 33. You'd probably say no. Those guys won't be playing their best football at the end of that contract. But with CJ, he's 25, coming off his first year at safety. There's some projection involved, sure, but I feel pretty confident saying his best football would be in the 3rd year of that deal. Given the experience, he'd be 28 at that point. So that's why I think it hurts, because you didn't have many opportunities to accomplish both tasks here, to make the team better in 2023 and in the future. And he was the one guy that I thought, man, that's why he should have been a priority. Maybe he was, and I think he was, but the two sides were just so far apart.
Dave, you surprised that Bradbury came back on a pretty favorable contract for the Eagles when you consider so many teams are looking for that upper echelon cornerback out there? I thought the numbers would be much higher than what he settled for here.
I'll tell you what might be more surprising than the safety market this offseason was the cornerback market.
Yeah.
I mean, defensive backs in general didn't get paid what we expected them to get paid. So, and like for safety, I think the valuation of the position varies, right? Like, and it's a less valuable position historically than corner. Seeing the corners not get paid, that was a little more surprising. We're living in this world where we're worried about the safety market, but the corner market's what allowed James Bradbury to come back. And once the Eagles didn't figure that out with CJ, that's where the money went. And we've seen them do that before when they kind of have to pivot in free agency when one deal isn't there. They go, well we got to spend this on something. And Bradbury made a lot of sense. It is a pretty favorable deal for the Eagles. It really comes down to a 2-year, $18 million contract, which for a guy who played as well as he did last year that's not bad. And the Slade deal is really a 2-year deal too, worth like $23 million. So getting both of those guys under contract for the next 2 seasons, look, maybe they'll decline enough that, you say, hey, that wasn't worth it, but they're going for it. They have a roster that should compete right now. They have the best quarterback in the conference by a country mile. I mean, there's no one else even close. So you go for it, and that's what they're doing.
Well, when you look at that, though, does that take them out the race for these really good corners in this draft? I mean, this is one of the better corner drafts I've seen. Gonzalez,
Witherspoon, Porter.
You've got guys that can come in and play now. I know they did it back in the day when they had 2 good corners and Bobby Taylor and those guys, but you think that would take them out the market, or are they just going to go with the trenches anyways? It's a foregone conclusion they're going with the trenches.
Well, look, I don't think it takes them out of it at all, and it shouldn't. I think the way that smart teams use free agency is to fill the holes, because the last thing you want is to go into a draft saying we need this position. That's when you end up with Marcus Smith, right? Like that's where you reach and you say, well, we got to get this position, and it puts you in a really bad spot. So that's the way I look at, especially a deal like Nicholas Morrow, right? He's not very good, but he started some games, and it kind of takes away this glaring hole that now you don't feel the need, like we got to get a linebacker in the draft. Not that they'd use a first rounder on one, but that's the idea, is you plug holes in free agency. So I don't think it crosses cornerback off the list. Now, they haven't drafted one in the first round since 2002.
Since Lito on those guys.
So, I mean, it's been a long time, but I agree with you. There are good players, and it goes beyond the top 3. And I know you mentioned Witherspoon, Gonzalez, and Porter. It goes beyond that. There will be really good players, whether it's Banks from Maryland or Cam Smith from South Carolina. There are other good corners that you could probably get at that number 30 pick, or if you want to have a modest trade down, like out of the first round into the second round. I think there'll be good corners there. And I don't think bringing back Slay and Bradbury prohibits you from doing that. It shouldn't. I mean, you shouldn't not draft someone because you have an aging vet in front of them. I think that's bad business. And we saw last year they drafted Cam Jurgens with Jason Kelce in place. So right. I don't think the Eagles think that way either.
Dave, if I had to put you on the spot and say that the position they need most help, where would you say?
And this is not taking into account positional importance. It's safety. Mm-hmm. Right now, they have 4 safeties under contract. And their starters are Reed Blankenship and Kayvon Wallace.
Yeah, that's
that is so
and
funny,
linebacker's
bro.
close. I mean, linebacker's not much better.
Yeah.
But man, safety right now, they aside from needing at least one starter, they need bodies.
Yeah.
Right.
They need some guys just fight for roster spots, and that's what Justin Evans is. He's a body to fight for a roster spot. Now you have Avonte Maddox, who has played safety before, and he did a little bit last year. You have Josiah Scott, who cross-trained at safety last year too, but you need safeties. You need just guys who are safeties. They play safety. They're going to compete for a safety job, or they're going to be a starter. And they are not done at that position. They can't be.
Yeah, they can't be done at that. But there's so many guys out there that in a position of need, not even a first rounder that you really draft at the safety position. So that's where I'm at. I know they won't draft a guy in the first round at safety.
No.
There's not even a guy that's quality enough to draft at number 1.
Branch is the one guy who could be a first round safety this year.
Well, I'm saying mid rounder. He's a mid rounder.
Yeah, or like second round pick. Like that wouldn't shock me, drafting one in the second round. Third round, they had the 94th overall pick. I think that would be a decent spot to grab one.
Hey, Dave, would you toy with the notion of bringing Rodney McLeod back? He said on the NFL Network the other day, Good Morning Football rather, that he would not mind finishing out his career. I mean, he had a great year. He was third on the team on the Colts last year in tackles. He bounced back nicely from that ACL injury. He would be a great veteran stabilizing force in the back end. I don't know. He was never the fastest safety out there, but he was one of the smartest safeties out there. Would you toy with that notion? You get him at a bargain basement price, probably.
Yeah, it's funny. Last year, the Colts, they really didn't want to start Rodney.
Right.
But he forced their hand. They had younger players they wanted to play, and Rodney was too good. They needed to play him. And then he ended up having one of the better seasons of his career. They really liked him in Indy. They're not going to bring him back there, I wouldn't assume, because they have these young players they want to play. I would absolutely entertain that. Now, I wouldn't entertain it as a starter.
Right.
I don't think you can rely on an aging Rodney McLeod and just fill it that way. But if you're talking about like a third safety, that old Corey Graham role, Sean Desai in Chicago did run some 3 safety looks. Like, I would entertain that. I think he'd be a really good depth player. And it would be cheap, but I don't think it can just be, hey, Rodney's back. He's the starter. We're ready for week 1. I wouldn't be on board with that. But as
You
bring him
wouldn't.
in, throw him in the mix, third safety role, yeah, for sure.
But come on, man. You got Kayvon Wallace and Reed Blankenship. I mean, really, people are really acting like Reed Blankenship is the second coming or something.
Exactly.
Like he's Malcolm Jenkins or maybe even B-Dog, you know.
I do think he has starting potential. Like, I think he can be a quality starter. The funny thing is, like, as much as I'm still bullish on Nakobe Dean, we've seen more Reed Blankenship than we have Nakobe.
Right.
It's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if he just turns out to be a depth guy, special teams, or more. Reed, it's to be determined right now. You're right. That's an area they are light. All right. The other big name with the Adam Schefter report yesterday was Ezekiel Elliott, and he's down to 3 teams supposedly: the Eagles, the Bengals, and the Jets. Are you buying it, Dave? And would you buy into him as an Eagle?
Yeah. This is the way I put it on Eagle Eye yesterday. The 3 women I'd like to date are Margot Robbie, Angelina Jolie, and Megan Fox. That's his list, right? It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I think you have a shot, by the way, with at least one of them. I got you.
It doesn't make sense. He's a declining player who Dallas used up.
He's the oldest 27-year-old. Like, he's 27 going on 56.
Right.
Yeah, and this is why it's like, man, the position's just brutal. Like, he's 27 years old, and we're talking about him like he should be thrown in the trash heap.
Right.
He was a really good player, you know.
Yeah.
And you don't bring in Rashad Penny if you're going to go out and even toy with the notion of bringing Zeke in. You don't bring Penny in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and look, I don't think Zeke would be expensive, but like,
no.
Well, I don't see it. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. I don't get it either. And the argument from some is, oh, he's so good at the goal line. Well, you got a quarterback who's so good at the goal line.
Yeah, the quarterback,
and the tush push is sticking around for at least another year. So, you know, to me,
and like Boston's really good at the goal line.
True.
Yep.
Rashad Penny's not bad at the goal line.
No, he's not.
That doesn't make sense to me. Even like, I don't get it.
It feels more like it's coming from his side than it is. You know, it takes 2 to tango, and it feels
you
like
got to generate buzz, man. Generate buzz.
Hey, that's what they get paid to do, right?
Right.
Exactly. Hey, Dave, this team lost its top 5 tacklers on defense, on a defense that was suspect in tackling anyway. You know, when you look going forward, overhauling the coaching staff, you're going to have a lot of new components to that defense. Is there an area that you see that could get exposed? You know, we talk about you've got 2 potential Pro Bowl corners. You've got, you know, you got Reddick on the outside. BG's coming back. Cox is coming back. But you're missing other pieces of the equation that made the sum of the whole that much better as a whole unit. Do you think there's an element that could get exposed outside of what we've been talking about, the safety spot?
I mean, middle of the field.
Okay.
And like, really, I don't just mean the middle of, I mean, like, straight up and down. Like, you lost Javon Hargrave, you lost both safeties, you lost both linebackers.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the middle of the field. I mean,
Absolutely.
so a lot of this is going to be like, all right, who do they have to replace him? Fletcher Cox coming back. I know people are going to groan about the money, kind of the going rate. And once Javon wasn't coming back, makes sense to me. Milton Williams is going to need to step up. I like Milton. I thought he played really well last year after he got past his injuries. Now he's a starter. So you need more from Milton. You need more from Jordan Davis, certainly. Who was playing really well before he suffered that high ankle sprain last year and then was never really the same. I thought he started to play better toward the end of the year. But both of those guys are now starters, which means you lost depth there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to replace that depth somehow. Right now, your backups are Tui Pelotu,
Marvin
Wilson.
Marvin Wilson, yeah.
You know, like, so you need some depth there. I could see them drafting high at defensive tackle. And then linebacker, Nakobe Dean's going to be a important piece of this defense.
Yeah.
I'd expect he's going to be your Mike linebacker. I like Nakobe, but haven't seen him play. And if it's Nakobe Dean and Morrow, you're undersized.
They're like safeties, man.
Bro, that's what I was saying. I've been saying for long. You got 5'11" and 6 foot.
You don't have those are little bodies out there.
Yeah.
So you do worry about tackling, and you worry about, okay, well, maybe the safeties will clean it up. Well, now you got
what safeties?
Blankenship and Kayvon Wallace. So yeah, that's the concerning part. Is the middle of this defense.
That's the scariest thing in the world, man. When you think about what our two starting safeties are, like, I mean, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Kayvon Wallace, he did step up a little bit, you know, when they asked him to at that third safety position. You know, you can say what you want to say, but he came in, was very, very good towards the end of the season.
Made some plays.
Yeah, but do we have a starter right now? And, you know, I mean, just like you said, like Davion Taylor, they cut him, brought him back and put him on practice squad. Nobody wanted him. They cut him and nobody wanted him.
Right.
So that just shows you, you know, one thing. Sean Bradley, special teams guru. Can he play linebacker in the league? When he did play, he used to overrun plays, wasn't very instinctual. We'll see. You know what I'm saying? Safety position, I just don't know, man.
You mentioned Christian Ellis, though, who
Christian Ellis played pretty well when they gave
I don't
him
know.
out.
We'll see. I think he's going to have a chance in camp to earn a spot. And if they don't bring anyone else in, like, there's a job open.
Yep.
There's no guarantee it's going to be Morrow. Like, you
Right.
bring him in. I just got a glance at the contract today. It's nothing. I mean, they can cut him tomorrow with almost no repercussions. So, that's an open job, and they might not be done there. I certainly don't think they're done at safety. And there are more intriguing options at safety on the free agent market still.
Yeah.
Whether it's Amos or whoever else, like, there are guys out there. I know they brought in Keanu Neal, which is funny. They brought in Keanu Neal for a visit because they need safeties and linebackers. And Howie's like, I know a guy who can do both. Let's
Hey, he also helped win them a Super Bowl, Dave. Let's be real about Keanu Neal.
Right knee of Keanu Neal.
Exactly.
Well, let me ask you this then. When you look at the offensive line, everybody's saying, you know, Cam Jurgens is just going to be penciled in at that right guard position. Is that really the case? I mean, you got Sewell Peta, Jack Driscoll. I mean, I think there's going to be a healthy relationship, competitive nature with that right guard position. But at this point, I still don't see a swing tackle either.
Well, I think Jurgens is the front runner for that right guard spot. They don't want him sitting another year. They really like him internally. They think he's a good player. He might be undersized overall when you look at guards, but he's about the same size as Seumalo.
Really is the same size as Seumalo, yep.
Yeah, he has long arms, so like I think he projects okay as a guard.
Not to cut you guys off, but Barrett, I mentioned it. Barrett and I did a segment where I asked about certain players at certain positions. Ian Rappaport just reported Eagles are signing Terrell Edmonds from Pittsburgh for safety.
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, he was one of the free agents who was out there that made sense.
I thought he was going back. I thought he was going to go back to the Steelers. That's a huge sign. Now we have a starting
75
safety.
starts. That's 75 starts over.
He's a starter, former first rounder.
Yep.
Yeah, coming off a good year.
2018 first rounder. Yep.
We have a started safety. So all right, we have that. We're good.
There you go. That's good.
I told you that was the Smitty's boy. You know, Avonte Smith's boy.
But that the one thing you
Avonte
can
Smith's
never
boy.
do is make any kind of pronouncements with Howie now. You got to have patience because he is a guy who will work later into the offseason, even into camp.
Yes,
We
he
know
will.
that into preseason games, if you will. So that's a good sign. That's interesting. Dave, listen, man, we appreciate a couple minutes, brother.
Appreciate you, D.
Thanks
Always.
for hopping on. Keep up the
Take
good
care,
work
guys.
at NBC
Later,
Sports
bro.
Philadelphia.com.
All right, see ya.
Take care. That's Dave Spadaro or Dave Zangaro. All right, let's get.
Spadaro.
I don't know. Sorry. Dave Zangaro. Let me.
Hey, dude, you know what? Now that you said that, we need to get Spuds on here
We'll
one
get Spuds
day.
on.
We gotta
We'll
get
make that
Spuds
happen.
on, man.
We can make that happen. I'll get Spuds on for us. Maybe next week. I'll reach out to him.
Oh man.
Let's sneak in a quickie here, and we come back. Ben Davis is going to join us. We got to talk about the Reese Hoskins situation. We're 6 days away from the Open of baseball. I can't wait. Can't wait to talk to Big Ben when we come back. Derek, Barrett, Rob, we are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Right now, I want to tell you about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, because knowing who to find and knowing who to trust with your finances can be a very difficult thing. And I found the right person, and that's Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group. And I want to let you know about him too, whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review. You might have a small business and you try to get your employee benefits set up. You're not really sure how to go about it. That's another resource that Jim can assist you with. I know I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollovers to Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. You will be too. Give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You could also email him, Murray, MURRAY.Jim@principal.com. That's Murray.Jim@principal.com.